All right. I concede. I think we should have an intro song.
We should. Definitely.
What do you think the Northern Boards, like the Boardcast intro song should be?
I imagine just like, remember that song from that like 70s show where the guy chases other people around and this
Like Benny Hill?
yeah, the Benny Hill thing.
I like funk. I think funk will be
Funk?
Yeah,
Or funk?
Will be creepy, like funky songs.
Oh,
Like
yeah, sure.
cruisy jazz,
Yeah.
just leading us in.
Yeah, Earth, Wind, and Fire just dances in.
Well, I did have the concept of going to the community and getting them to suggest intro music for us. I know that'll be a shambles, but you know, what better way to drive community input than letting them pick what we put on the show?
Send them in.
Potentially very dangerous, right? A lot of fun. I got to listen to all the songs, right? So someone could just send me something horrible.
Well,
Royalty free, bro.
how
Please.
about this?
Royalty
If
free.
you guys want to suggest songs, you sign up to the Patreon, and I will listen to any song that anybody who signed up to the Patreon sends me, and then I'll make a decision from there. I'm not saying I'm going to pick your song, but I'm saying I'll listen to it.
Listen to full length.
Half. That's just a little sketchy there because what if they send in like a 5-hour song? Like I guess
Okay.
I guess even that I can listen to while I'm
maximum 1.5 minutes. I will listen into it. How about that?
I do like that the intro song of podcast generally like sets the tone of what you expect. Like Joe Rogan's podcast is just him kind of like, he has someone like a voice clip.
It's sound bites. I think
Yeah.
I would love to get to a point where we do sound bites.
I think
but
the
you need
sound bites is fun. It sets like that casual tone.
to have like a good selection of sound bites. You need to go for a while and like pick out cool things because when people listen to the intro and the sound bites from there, they can be like, oh, I listened to 10 years ago when this happened or whatever it is. And like, I think especially with the Rogan one, I think there are people only found out that it's one of the main bite is from a UFC fight and the guy yells it after. So,
Nice.
So it's like, even for those people, it's like a callback to like 20 years earlier when he was like calling fights, you know.
Nice.
Obviously still does it.
I like the Lex Friedman podcast because his intro is just he sits in front of the camera and he does like just speaks to you in introduction like he's gonna write an essay. Like I sit up in my chair, I'm like, oh shit, I'm gonna get educated here.
Yeah, like if you're doing a uni assignment and the teacher sends you got like, oh, you got to read this out, so they send it that way.
Absolutely zero music's all serious here.
Well, so the Patreon is ready to go. So it's $4.50 a month. That's all we're asking for from people. So if you sign up to Patreon and you send us a song, your song will be considered for the intro for the Northern Boards
Danny
podcast.
promised to listen at least a minute into it. At least.
Well, it's actually we're podcast 4, right? So that means we're officially 1 month of podcasting.
Yeah.
Oh, let's go.
I think that means we're above the average 90% of people that start podcasts. Most
go.
people quit between 2 and 3. So if as long as this one makes it out tonight, Kane gets home nice and safe and he uploads it, we're already above the 90%. So feeling pretty good about that.
I
Done
want to
deal.
mention Dune one more time.
I've actually been my information on June was so bad that I've gone back and listened to the audiobook for June.
Oh, no.
Yeah, I got a little distracted because in between then a new Gotrek and Felix book got released on audiobook. So I've swapped out of Dune to do the Gotrek and Felix one, and then I'm going to go back into the June one after. But it's been pretty good. Like
You've been back reading a lot of those GW books.
yeah,
Black Library.
I'm trying to get back into reading a little bit more. I used to read a lot, and over the time with like lack of time and whatever, and like I'm also older, so I read for like 3 minutes and I get pretty sleepy. So I've been back reading. Like, well, I think the thing I'm reading at the moment is the Dice Men, which is the intro book to how Warhammer and Games Workshop
Right.
started, and that's pretty interesting. Like as other guys here starting and working in small businesses, it's nice to see when other small businesses actually become successful. I think reading through the first half of the book, I was like, I feel I'm just like these guys. Like they were living out of a car, and you know every cent that they owned went back into this business. And I think it's hard. Like Kang's been around here well enough, and William's been doing his own small business as well. You put so much time and effort and money into operating it, and a lot of people don't understand. Like I don't know how the conversation with you have with your partner Will, but mine doesn't always understand when every cent that I earn goes back into the business trying to keep operating. Sometimes it can be hard to articulate to them why you're still so committed to something that may or may not be the most beneficial thing to you. But I was like reading the book. I was like, oh, these guys are like me. They're living in a car. Every cent they earn is going there. And then I was like, it's just like me. And then a year later, they were like millionaires. I was like, oh, not quite like me.
Well, definitely, I feel like
What year was it? What year was it when they started?
Like 80, they started with a thing called Owl and Weasel, which is the precursor to White Dwarf. And that was like in the late 70s. I think it was like 78, 77.
nice.
And then they started Games Workshop about 80, 81, and they started talking to the same people that were like doing the sculptors and the original crew. So it was like the Perry twins and those guys who came on initially. And there was a bit back and forth between like the Games Workshop guys who started with White Dwarf and then the Citadel Miniatures guy, which I really should know his name, forgotten, but the Citadel Miniatures and Games Workshop, even though it was the same company, were kind of run separately. And then through a disagreement with the main sculptor for Citadel, he left the company, and then Games Workshop was forced to buy Citadel back from them. But then that same sculptor ended up coming back to the business 2 more times, pretty quickly as well. So Games Workshop definitely came off pretty well with that kind of buyout, because initially Citadel and Games Workshop were separate. Still had, had their fingers in each other's pies, but being able to then Games Workshop like secure Citadel in like literally the first year or so for not a huge amount of money is massive, because then they've got these sculptors, so they're some of the most famous miniature sculptors in the world under their belt, and they're now they own the IP, and like they basically owned Warhammer, the entire concept of Warhammer 40k and all the chaos and how that whole storyline is really owned by the guy who started Citadel Miniatures, but it became under the Games Workshop IP. And obviously they're very smart businessmen being able to secure that and lock that down, and then obviously turn it into like a multi-million-dollar business in the year of 2024. So
Pretty good.
Not gonna lie.
William's like, yes, my roadmap to $1 million. Writes down his notes, acquire Citadel.
Brian Ansell. Brian Ansell is the name of the Citadel, the sculptor from Citadel. And it is like this one guy really is the precursor to the majority of Warhammer lore.
Is that the fella that passed away recently? Or am I thinking of someone else?
Not sure, actually. I have to. Yeah, oh no, yeah, you're absolutely correct. Yeah, yes. Absolutely correct. Yeah. So, but yeah, it's interesting to think of like how many thousands of books and like video games and stories, and how much of I would say Warhammer Fantasy for me is like a massive part of my childhood. How that was really instigated by one man, and obviously, like any fantasy story, he's taken little parts of stories from here or there, but really they've turned this into something so engulfing to take up, like, be such an inspiration to so many hobbyists around the world.
Does it seem like for them, everything kind of like line up nicely for them to find success? Because like, when you read about other people finding success, it can be a little bit of like, oh man, everything seemed to work out for them. Or, they just worked really hard for it, and they were just fortunate enough to also like find good people and work on meeting good people. And just like you said, the dedication required to make a business successful. I
don't know what your opinion on this is, William, but I think if you just work hard enough, long enough, you should come across luck. Luck is like not a tangible thing in reality, but if you work hard enough and you're in the right places, luck will find you to a certain degree. Like the guys worked really hard, and they spent all their free time while working full-time jobs to create like Alan Weasel, which eventually becomes White Dwarf, right? So that means that they did that enough that other people noticed them and gave them opportunities, which you could call lucky because they got those opportunities. But if they hadn't put the work in hard in the first place, those opportunities would never have come to them in the first place. So the biggest thing for Games Workshop was in the early days was when D&D came out, Gary Gygax was the writer for Dungeons and Dragons, right? And he was part of another miniature company in the United States. He had read one of the Alan Weasel like early magazines, and these are like the guys would literally print like 1,000 or 2,000, and then they would distribute them by driving their van around the UK and literally delivering them to people, and wherever their final delivery was for the day, they would sleep in their van there and then start again the next day. So that's how that all initially started. And then when D&D came out, they were playing it quite regularly in their like they were actually the Games Workshop original building was actually just their apartment. It was actually their mate's apartment because they didn't have their own apartment. So they were playing a lot of D&D there and doing their thing and playing at universities. And they were like, man, we'd love to like write up and do stuff with D&D in the like Alan Weasel, like the magazine, because they mostly sell like board games, and they'd advertise, they'd try like when a new Risk would come out, they'd do that. Anyway, so they were really hoping to try and contact the guys from Dungeons and Dragons. So they go to write up and mail and send it to them, because we're literally talking about the 70s where they're going to have to mail them to do that. And in the meantime, someone's transported like their version of Alan Weasel over to US where they'd been traveling in the UK, given it to Gary Gygax, and he'd read it. And in the meantime, Gary Gygax had sent them a package where it had like 2 sets of D&D in it, because it was like original D&D was like 3 just paper printed books, right? He gives it to the guys at Games Workshop and or sends it to them. So the day that they're off to go contact Gary Gygax by mail, they receive mail, and it happens to be the D&D like sets. And Gary Gygax is like, oh, we love your stuff. It's really cool. Like if you guys ever come out to the States, you should come check it out. So
Was Gary Gygax a big name by then? Was D&D already big? Because D&D's
in the hobby sphere, yes,
right.
massive, because it's like there wasn't a lot going on.
That must have been a huge motivator.
To them, massive. And he thought because they were printing this magazine and it was going out, like at this point they were getting a couple thousand like subscriptions, he thought they were a massive company. He didn't realize it was 2 guys living in a van, like not being able to eat. So they managed to secure the UK, European, what do you call it when it's the only people? Exclusive. I forgot the word exclusive there for a nightmare. They got the European exclusive rights to release Dungeons and Dragons in the whole of Europe, and it was 2 guys in a van. And so from there,
that's huge.
It's huge, right? It's massive. And they managed to hold on to that for like 4 or 5 years. And they went and met Gary Gygax, and like, at the time when he met them, and he was like, interesting. I didn't realize, I didn't realize this was the case, but he didn't withdraw the contract for them straight away, and they had it for 5 years. And that was a massive booster. And because that contract was up, that 4 or 5 years, whenever it was, the contract was for, they knew they weren't going to be able to hold on to it, because at that point, D&D was enormous. So they needed like a massive distribution company like to be able to deal with. And there's going to be in Germany and France and England was now going to be different companies, because it's so big that you can't just have one person dealing with that, right? So because that was going to go away, that's what forced them to start working on what eventually became Warhammer, because they're like, we're losing D&D, and they mostly produced miniatures for D&D like owlbears and the wizards and stuff like that. So that's what Brian Ansell came on to do, was to build to construct miniatures for these games. He was going to go away and then put that together for him. So they had to start working on something else to then take over their flagship product, which happened to be Warhammer in the end. So it's pretty interesting stuff, and like it is interesting to have such a small group of people have such a massive influence on like now millions of people all around the world from like 2 guys working out of a van.
Every one of these stories I hear about, like where these big franchises or these companies come from, you always get stories of like the founders having to like work so hard, and like there were stories of like them putting all their money into their vision, and they just have to stay the course. They have to see that vision and stick to it, right? Because I imagine it must be hard for them, because they sound like hardworking, probably quite talented fellas, right? Where if they wanted to, they could probably get a job and live a regular life, right? They didn't have to be living out of their mate's home or like living in their cars, but they saw the vision and they stuck by it, and they just really pushed for it. And then just like you said, eventually they stuck out long enough that luck finds them, and they have a crazy situation like that where they can acquire the exclusive rights to distribute D&D, and then also then buy out Citadel, and then I imagine from there it just, you never know, right?
Yeah,
you mentioned like you go to the next chapter and suddenly they're like millionaires.
Yeah, well, it didn't happen like overnight like that, but within quite a few, like not a long period of time, like in the mid 80s, they now had millions of subscriptions to their White Dwarf, and then like they were selling board games, and people were coming to them to distribute stuff that it affronted them opportunities that they weren't going to get in any other way. And now they've become a massive distribution company in England, and like their ability to hold on to IP and rights and distribution rights was a big, that's good business. Anybody can be like passionate about their project, but obviously they made very smart decisions about which IPs they tried to retain and which ones that they didn't want to waste money on and stuff like that.
I remember reading somewhere where it's like GW is like Fortune 500 company, and it's like it's actually like a considerable like portion of like UK GDP.
Oh yeah, it's one of the most profitable companies in the country. Which when you compare that to like oil and gas and electricity and other pretty crazy things, like I know in England they made more money than Tesla during COVID, which is crazy. Little plastic men getting painted.
Of course, that's the only thing you can do, right?
Yeah, I guess more people were painting miniatures than they were driving it at that point.
Yeah, pretty much.
So with that in mind, of what they have planned, what do we have planned here on the Boardcast?
That is true. Like,
where's our Gary Gygax?
I think that's you. That's why I'm holding on to hope.
Oh shit! I better start writing more
Kang's
D&D books.
the next guy.
Actually, back then, magazines were a big deal, right? Because there wasn't a lot of like, for example, like the hobby sphere, especially I wanted to say the nerdy kind of hobbies. You got what you got from magazines.
Yeah,
really.
Absolutely. It was like magazines are the pre-internet essentially.
Because
right?
Magic was a Duelist magazine, and Duelist was where you learn about like pro players, their cool decks, the new releases. I imagine
card prices
and card
True,
prices. They
yes.
shaped the card prices. That's crazy. I actually, magazines for me hold a special place for me because when I was quite young and I didn't have really like reliable internet, and like generally speaking, going onto the internet to find like gaming related news wasn't a big thing. So for me, it was like every month I would have a subscription to like PC Power Play or Hyper,
yeah.
or I'd like go into a news agency and I'll read the White Dwarf there and stuff.
I was a poor little child. So what we would do is we'd go behind the post office at the end of each week and we'd pull out the magazines from the bin from behind the post office because they would have to cut the front page off and then send them back to the post company and they'd get refunds for the ones that they'd have to like put in the bin. But the whole rest of the magazine was in the bin, man. So we'd go there and you're like, sometimes you'd find like pretty decent stuff. And a lot of games had demos back then as well. All that's in the bin, man. We just hoik them out of there. And you just got to hope you got to the bins before the IGA guys got there and filled it up with like other trash.
Oh no.
Yeah, demos then. Can you imagine? Last time, now demos is like just download like a small file. Now, last time it's like a small CD or
I have a
this,
stack
like
of those CDs still at home.
I feel like the post office and that early time is like very much, I'm old manny here, but it falls into that blockbuster kind of thing where it's like, it was part of the fun was going down there. You only had like $11 to spend on a magazine. I can't just buy every magazine like the same way you can just download any demo now. It's like, it was a really important decision that you make. And if you made the wrong one, you could have had an effect. So it's like going down and picking that magazine and your mum being like, absolutely not, I'm spending money on this month. You know what I mean? You're like, oh, this is like, you got to try. I feel like that's part of the experience that really drives to having a great like experience.
Yeah, I remember as a kid, it was like that week I didn't have enough like pocket money to buy the magazine. I'll sneak to the news agency and I'll just like read the hyper mag in the news agency. Yeah. You can tell the news agent's kind of like, oi, stop reading that. Yeah. But he's also like, I don't care.
Well, they always acted as like there was the thing is like, we're not a library, so you got to buy it.
Yeah.
It's like, well, if they'd used their brains and saved more library, maybe they would have stuck around longer.
Do you reckon magazines going to stick around for much longer? I really don't see it.
Surely they can't. Surely they've got to have statistics on who's signed up to them and what memberships they've got, and like, and it's got to be aging out slowly, right?
It was hard for me because I was like I feel like I was one of the last like few readers of those, especially Australian publications, right? Australia is one of those weird things where like we always tend to stick around with the old mediums. Older than like, a bit longer than everyone else. So we had Blockbuster for so long.
Our internet is terrible and our post office is terrible and like all those things. So it's like sometimes getting stuff from a physical media is the most viable way.
And I remember like when Hyper was like, this is our last magazine. And I was like, oh
no.
And then I remember PC Power Play, they didn't do a last issue. They just got bought out by another bigger company. And I was like, oh. It's like all those people.
So did they go straight away, did they?
No, they didn't go straight away. They went from like a monthly subscription to being quarterly. They got bought out by a bigger like writing company that also writes for I can't remember the name of the
some media company.
It's just a bigger magazine company bought them out basically, and a couple of the writers stuck on, but didn't have the same feel. And now I think they don't even have their quarterly mag anymore. I think they're just a feature of that other mag now.
In the 60s and 70s, the magazine industry was very much like the early .com industry. There was millionaires and billionaires made in the course of a couple of years because printing became in the like that 60s to 70s reign. There was this big technological advancement in how they produced magazines and typesetters. And they're the guys who like organized like newspapers and stuff like that, right? Who all printed them. There was this huge technical advantage of how printing happened. So all of a sudden you could print 20 times the amount of magazines for half the cost. So you had these guys who made billions of dollars their companies, and some of the best entrepreneurial books I've read are from guys who made immense amounts of money and how their thing is. But as you're listening or you're reading these books or you're listening to an audio books, you've really got to cut out what of their advice is just not applicable to the current situation anymore. Because even when they read their autobiographies and their entrepreneurial books about how they did that, that opportunity is just not a possible opportunity anymore. Like they could secure out, they could secure this type of magazine and then buy out anybody else who wrote that magazine, like a similar, because you got to get a lot of money to produce a magazine back in the day. So as soon as a new one came on the table, people would buy out a brand new one just to kill it. But you can't really do that with the internet, right? Like if you write a blog, you can't buy out someone else's blog. And there's also a million other guys writing a bloody blog. Like you can't cut them out of the industry the same way these magazine moguls did. And obviously like it's strong business and like could be ruthless and all those kind of things or whatever. But like it's the same thing. One of the biggest guys who owned the magazine companies in England was one guy who lived in his own room and printed everything from his own room. Almost the same story as the Games Workshop guys, where he did this and he became one of the richest men in the world I think by the early 90s, he was one of the richest men in the world, and all from magazines. And then, you know, as the 90s turn over, he retains his money and he sold out almost at the perfect time. But then magazines almost instantly die as soon as the internet becomes viable kind of thing. So it was always, again, smart business. Like, you know, one of the things was he owned a bunch of the PC magazines thing. And one of his early opinions, because he died, I think, in the late 90s, he was quite old at this point, right? Mm-hmm. He died in the late 90s. So he still died with the opinion that the internet was like it was a fad and it would go away.
I remember that.
Yeah.
When
So
the internet first came out.
well, it's like that. It's like in his opinion, it was a fad that was going to go away. Obviously, it was quite wrong, but didn't make a difference to how wealthy he lived for most of his life.
Someone showed me a lot of like the news articles that came out during when the internet was.
Did you use the 14K?
No, my first
56?
My first experience was a Windows 93, I think, with my dad.
What's your
maybe 95, maybe?
Do you have like the 14 kbps modem?
I don't even know what that means.
Was your internet noisy?
The beep beep beeps.
Yeah. Okay.
The first one, I mean, my mum was a fairly like popular lady, I guess is the word, or she had a lot of people to talk to anyway. So she would take a phone call and the internet would die. And you're like, Mom! Yeah. You get like 3/4 way through downloading something and have to start again.
Like you can either take a phone call or you use the internet.
Yeah.
I'm glad that I skipped the dial-up era because I was around for ADSL.
Yeah.
ADSL. That's the first ADSL then. Like after 14K, it went to 56K. 56K was the top of the line.
Did you play WoW with it?
You can't. What? WoW? You can't even play WoW on 56K.
You gotta frame it for me, mate. When was it?
This is like when I was like year 4.
That doesn't tell me what year it is.
Okay, well,
Now he's gonna give away too much information.
Yeah, how old are you? Will I gotta count
10
back.
years old, so maybe 28 years ago, 29 years ago.
Well, okay, so 90s.
I remember being in primary school and ADSL came out, and I asked Mum. I didn't know anything about it, but I was a bit of a nerd, so I was hanging out with my prime minister at school, and he would like, not prime minister, vice principal.
Prime minister.
Mr. Prime Minister.
Yeah, me and a couple of mates would have like computer class with him instead of having lunch because we were massive nerds. And he was telling us about it, and I was like, Mom, there's this new ADSL thing, and the internet's better. And I think my mum went and found, I think at the news agency, like found a thing where it talked about it, and she's like, I'm not paying that much money. And I was like, please, Mom. But it was a couple of years before.
So I don't think you can run WoW on even ADSL. You can't. WoW was like what 2000 and what?
Oh, I don't remember.
Were you guys
3 or 4? I think 2 or 3, 4.
Yeah, right.
Do you guys remember much about the Y2K era? Do you guys?
Oh
remember?
yeah, definitely. There's a song about it.
Well, no, just like how old were you when Y2K happened? Because
Good
I was
party
like,
like
year
it's
2000.
19.
yeah, because I was 3 years old. I can't recall that. I don't think the internet mattered to me when
I
I was
was at a Y2K party. I was obviously a child. I think I was probably like 10ish.
I was like 15 or 16.
Yeah. So I was I know I was at a mate's house and I remember we all had like Y2K like glasses and like paper hats
Oh
and
my
stuff.
goodness.
It's supposed to be end of the world, right?
Yeah, well,
All the computers explode.
Do you
the
know that-
coaster.
do you know-
It is a
Fight
what I would say like a marketing gimmick because everybody was so worried and everybody were selling on the point that your device will not work after the year 2000. So a lot of devices had a sticker on it like Y2K compliant.
yes.
So
But do you know recently some of the Y2K issues actually cropped up? So in a bunch of FPOS terminals and things where you have scanners at Woolworths to scan your product, they weren't designed to go past 2020. So what happened was that they then scanned it went over past 2020, and then those systems like basically shut down because they were I don't know enough about computing. It's probably more a question for you, but it wasn't set up to go past that time period. And then nobody had thought about it because it's been 20 years past Y2K. Obviously, it's just an example of what they expected to happen at Y2K, right? But a bunch of the FPOS terminals around the world just stopped registering and they just shut down. You got a blank screen because the computer's like, it's trying to basically boot or do like work and it just couldn't work anymore because it thinks now it's in the past and it needs to get updated every day to stay updated with pricing.
The banking world is an absolute nightmare of architecture in the back end for like the computer field because a lot of what the international like banking operated like some old ancient architecture, and when they finally updated it for like the internet, it was written in like a really old language and like an old like archaic programming language. So anytime they need to do any work for any sort of banking related things, they need like super highly specialized programmers, software designers, and stuff to come in to basically fix things, and it's super hard. It's like there's very, very few people left in the world that actually know how to work with that language.
I guess you don't want to like you can't make mistakes in that industry either because you're like, oh, that guy's $1 million just disappeared.
You get paid extremely well though if you know how to do it, because it's like it's not an easy language. It's like I can't actually remember the name of it right now, but basically the international bank, all the banks in the world are linked up right through this network, and this like and the communication method for it and the program they use for the back end. It's old, and if you want to make a shitload of money as a software programmer, you just like learn stuff like that. Anything that's super old and archaic, if you can learn it and you be one of the only people in like your entire country that know how to work with
Ancient language.
you can the banks will have to be like, we need you to work on this, and you'd be like, I want this much money.
This feels like the all the movies, right? Where they'll be like, hey, I have this ancient technique.
Yeah.
This powerful
He is like
spell.
the Shifu, right? The old ancient master top of the hill. It's like, welcome to child. I shall teach you the ways of making money as a software engineer.
You do hear about that like every now and again, like where a piece of software, like the guy passes away who wrote it, and nobody knows that software language or something anymore. And it makes it impossible to like deal with. Like I worked at Suncorp Bank when I was 18. It was my first job out of school, and the system, I remember looking at the system then. So this is, I think it was like 2010. And I remember looking at the system then and being like, why does this look like it was on my granddad's Windows 95 when I was 8 years old? Like I do remember sitting there being with the system like, how is this what's in control of my money moving left and right?
Also, generally speaking, the older architecture can be a little bit more robust because it doesn't have a lot of the vulnerabilities of like modern languages or modern software. So it's for like a lot of banks and stuff. It's like, why risk upgrading it to a newer system when the older system has been working for so long?
Harder to hack, probably.
Yes, security is the number one thing. Security is the number
Ancient
one.
language, bro. Ancient language. This feels like a movie. Like, I know the ancient language.
It's funny because me as a computer science student, and I have to learn a lot of programming. As much as I don't like it, I have to learn a lot of programming.
Speak friend and enter.
Oh, man. I wish it was that easy. Yeah. So like,
That's all you need to learn language, though. It's like you can speak friend, but what kind of friend? What kind of language, right?
well, programming is basically like learning a new language.
Yeah.
So, and then, so like you got like, because programming is like layers of difficulty. You got all the modern languages, the real nice and easy stuff that everyone learned. And you go one more lower layer down and you have like the C language and like Unix that everything the computers are based on. And you go even further down. And as you go further down the iceberg, the better and better it pays because it's more specialized your field becomes. Like, I have so much respect for people that can learn to code in assembly, because assembly is essentially a coding language that your computer interfaces. It's the in-between layer to binary, ones and zeros. Like ones and zeros, ons and off is what your computer talks in. That's like your computer's able to just flick on and off. Everything's a switch on and off.
The beer tech company that I was working for, like the last couple of years, they worked in a system that was below Python. I don't know what it was, but it was one below. And that made it a big issue then trying to integrate it into a lot of other technology and moving forward. And the guys in Europe, where like in Poland, where they were designing machines, the initial guys wrote in this, I wish I remember what it was. Did you say it was called C?
C is like a foundation for most computer languages, but it's just one language.
I wonder if it was that. I know it was a more difficult one essentially to work with, right? But then the new guys coming out of uni, who are the engineers over there, the software engineers, they had never touched this because there was like their uni guys were like, well, you never need to deal with this because it's like a technology nobody works in anymore. And then that means when people were dealing with the piece of technology and the uni students coming through, like getting these new software engineers, they're like, I don't know what this is.
It's a nightmare, right? Because no one wants to learn like the archaic stuff. So binary is literally the computer, and then you have, for example, C, which is like a lower level language, quite old now, but quite strong, quite robust, and like most things these days are still built on C. And C, at least everything is in English, so you can still read it. So you have C, which you can read, and binary, which is basically unreadable. Assembly is the in between. Assembly is the next closest thing down, and there's people that code in assembly, and assembly is in hexadecimal, which, if you guys don't know, is letters and numbers. So you have people that are like take this hexadecimal and they can program in it. So like it's as low down as you are to the computer, to the raw base of like the language of the computer, and people can able to program in it. And there's like very few people that can do it, that can do it well. But the people that can do it are they're like wizards to me. It's like when William talks about that master on top of the hill, it's like a wizard. Because like when you get down to that layer, you have so much more control over the computer, what the computer can do, the memory management, and the efficiency. When someone talks about how efficient a thing runs, it's usually because like the language it's just been better coded.
All right, if I took a Space Marine, right, and I stacked a Space Marine on top of a Space Marine, so that's 2 Space Marines,
Yeah.
and that's the distance between Python and assembly, how many more Space Marines is it below to get to that?
From Python to assembly, it's not. It's technically not a big like incrementally, it's not a big jump, but like skill level wise, it would be like from one side of the road to the other side of the road.
Exponential.
And then to get to the point where I can then plug my iPhone in, how many Space Marines up is that?
I don't know, but all I'm trying to say is that I'm not looking forward to it because I'm studying cybersecurity, and a lot of cybersecurity is when you get into like, especially with cryptography and like you get really, really down into like software. That's when you have to start looking at vulnerabilities in like the lower level languages.
We're talking about the cybersecurity thing then, and like this bunches in with the iPhones. So you know how in Europe that they forced Apple to then have everything have a USB-C now? So they took away Lightning because they're just like, you're trying
They want to standardize everything.
Yeah, well, they don't want you. They're trying to stop Apple from forcing people to buy their technology that they can change on a whim whenever they want, right? So they're forcing them to do the USB-C. Now, what they want Apple to do is, because you can only buy apps from the Apple Store and download those to your phone. What they're pushing for now is to force Apple to allow other people to download other apps onto their phone. Now, one of the biggest things that Apple says for that reason is because if every app that gets downloaded onto an Apple phone has been vetted and is managed by Apple, it means that the cybersecurity is much better. And traditionally, it actually has been. Like, obviously, Apple's had a few issues over the years, but nowhere near as comparison to if you had a
Android,
right? So, but what I'm like, if now you can have other apps being downloaded to an Apple, like an Apple phone, iPhone. Does that mean that there's way more backdoors and space there for companies to work their way into that software that's traditionally been quite protected?
I don't think so. Apple tends to have a pretty closed off environment regardless. So,
But doesn't this open it up?
I don't think so.
You don't think so?
I think
No, I mean, the end of the day is everybody can like you can already like there's gonna be like 2 stores all the time, right? So you have like the App Store and then you have the Google Play, right? Pretty much is whatever you made. Like I'm not sure what is the goal is, because if they want to make like one store for everything, then Apple OS has to change because the foundation of the framework to build an app for Google OS is completely different from an app it's just not native. They're both 2 systems, so you can build like a hybrid. It's just like a web app or whatever, but that works on both. But if you want to natively work on iOS, then you really have to build for iOS itself and putting it on the App Store. So that's no different. Like if the European Union wants to like Apple to allow Google Play into iPhone, it's just not going to work because the OS is different. Like you can download the app, but it's just not going to work because it's not built for.
Yeah, I guess it takes
the
for like
iOS.
larger companies that where it's worth for them to then go spend money and time to then reproduce that app so it does work on there.
Correct.
the reason why I think it doesn't really change for anyone, 99% of like in the computer science field, 99% of when someone gets quote unquote hacked, it's usually they did something stupid. It's all human error. Generally speaking, it's human error.
Also, like Google Play does not vet the apps. If you
can
build
put
a
you can put anything
Trojan
on there.
app, right? If you submit it, like 5 minutes later, it's approved.
Well, that's where that's different with Apple, that
Correct.
they're quite strong about that. So,
So
that's why
if you
that's where
build
the
like
doesn't come from.
an app for iOS, it takes time where they go into your app and look into your app and like ask you questions like, "Hey, what is this for?"
That's
Or
why it was
this-
a bit of a
this is
controversy
this-
that
yeah.
TikTok got through, right?
Correct.
With their like back caching apps where it could like
Correct.
turn things on.
Well,
and
the
off.
big reason why, another big reason why I don't think it affects easily 90% of the population is that think about the apps that you use every day. Like
Facebook.
most people don't really venture past the usual apps they download and use
Yeah,
every day.
so that's the
And
thing,
they're all
like,
pretty like
The
large
chances of
companies.
you like promoting an app similar to the apps that you usually use.
Yeah.
You know what I'm
That's-
saying?
That's the same thing as like phishing, right? Like
Yes,
you're-
pretty much is. It's like Apple prevents that.
correct.
Yeah,
It's,
so-
I do think the Apple Store.
So it
is
gives you
safer.
the chance, the rate, like what Danny said in the beginning, like the luck, right? So if you work hard enough, it's the same thing as if you do like a Warhammer game, if you fire 60 shots, there's a higher chance of you getting like a 5+ than you doing like 3 shots at a 2+. Yeah, there's going to be more hits on the 60 shot.
Well, did you see? This is like going to a side again. I'm just captain of diversions here, but there was a scandal in the video gaming, the high-end thing, where the anti-hacking software that they were using was actually had a backdoor and was turning on game editions. So in some of the guys paying, I only have a very surface level of information for this story, but basically what it was doing is the guys were playing Call of Duty, right?
Yep.
It was turning on like auto target and stuff like that.
Yes, I know this story. So Apex Legends, which is a game that I also play on occasion, they had a big tournament where Apex Legends has had a long history of like unreliable security and like server issues. And I imagine, I don't know, gamers are weird and fickle and they have like their own issues with the game company. During a pro tournament, a person hacked the server they were playing on and it just gave everyone aimbot. Just gave all the pro players a bunch of aimbot.
But if everyone's got it, is it cheating or is it just less skilled?
It was a big tournament and suddenly they just call off the tournament and they have to reschedule again. And it was like a real public
Yeah, I
thing.
saw that. I saw that
Yeah.
on.
And then the news came out. It was like some 16-year-old kid like claimed like ownership of like he's the one that did it. So
Yeah, you can see like screen suddenly. You can see like they can see through all the players
have
and
wall
like they
hacks
know
and
where they all are and stuff like that. So it's pretty cool.
So the controversy is less that it was they had aimbot on them, more that their security was bad enough that somebody
bad
could just
enough
hack
that
into it.
someone could basically inject scripts into the server affecting the players. That's a huge no-no.
Do you think at a high level, when it's already a tournament level, people start to notice that the aimbot's on, or are they good enough that they don't need that?
Everyone noticed it immediately.
Yeah, because it's streaming.
Yeah.
True.
So once you're streaming, so what they say is if you get hacked, you need to leave the game, pretty much.
Yeah.
Got it.
But it was like a pro tournament, so there's
Yeah.
like regulations and they're trying to make it formal. And as a company, it's got to be embarrassing to just like publicly get just out of
Yeah,
that.
and like I said, it was on stream, so everybody knew about it.
Straight
So
away.
yeah, it's
Like,
pretty bad.
I'm admittedly not that good at video games. Like I like to play games a lot, but I'm admittedly not very good at them. But I have like in the past when I've got okay at games, like I said, like Halo, sometimes the aimbot gets in the way because it's like trying to spin the camera in a way that you like. I don't want it to
you
go
mean
there.
the aim assist?
Okay, sure,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well,
See,
you get aim assist if you are running
On a controller.
On a controller.
Got it.
Yeah, they
Aimbot-
give you
aimbot-
free aim assist.
When we mean aimbot, it means like the computer takes full control of your aiming and doesn't miss.
Yeah, it's like if you just press that button, it just hits
Like
100%.
you'll watch someone's screen, their crosshairs directly over someone's head and doesn't move.
oh, interesting.
Exactly.
So it just
Yeah.
it's
It
auto
traces.
It
tracking.
tracks.
Yeah.
And then everyone had wall hacks, so everyone could see each other through walls.
aim assist is like if you're on because now it's just cross platform
controller,
play,
yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So pretty much if you're on a controller, they assist you on the aim.
Is that to trying to like bridge the gap? between
yeah,
the
It
mitigate-
compensates the fact that you
Yeah.
got a thumbstick and someone's
Yeah.
got a tie mouse.
Yeah.
pretty much that's it.
Because
Like
over the years, like if I have got okay at a game, sometimes that gets in the way, and you're like, I don't want the camera to go there. I'm trying to get it to where I want it to go.
So they give you aim but not movement because the PC players get movement, very easy movement, very smooth movement, but on a console, right? Because it's so hard to move. Like, it's like if you can see, like he's turning really slow. That's a console way.
Apex is also an extremely fast game. Like,
It's a zoomies game.
I play it a lot, and it like is really representative of like the modern age of like competitive games where everything is so fast. I'm telling you, these kids are like cracked out of their brain. So, just like any real sport as well, esports or like video game sports is also marred with like controversy around cheating and even performance enhancing drugs, right? Like it's crazy.
Just like it just snorting no-dos.
Well, no, legitimately. So like there's stories of like in esports there'll be teams where like everyone is just juiced up on caffeine all the time and everyone's like popping Adderall as well to help them focus in the game as well. And then there's like all the time you'll
All they
see,
need
like,
is Neuralink.
oh, dude, we have to talk about that.
If you think it,
'cause
you can shoot it.
apparently, I don't know how true this is. The first guy to have a Neuralink installed in his brain just stayed up all night playing Civilization 6 with his brain.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
That's sick.
How?
Because he's a quadriplegic. So
Yeah.
he's like no arms, no legs.
Yeah.
So he's like, whatever, dude, stick the Neuralink in my brain. And apparently, like,
Yeah, what's he got to lose,
I
right?
haven't followed this, so I've only seen like the
All right.
tabloid headlines.
Well,
but
we'll come back to this, but we'll get more information. But we definitely need to know more about this Neuralink stuff.
But apparently he played
William's
Civ
gonna be on the
6.
phone straight after this. Like,
We'll put it up, but apparently he played Civ 6 all night, and he's been like tweeting on like Twitter or X these
that's
days.
pretty fucking cool, but man,
If that's happening.
If you have a horrific injury or like whatever, disability like that, then the options then to do just like an extra stuff is pretty
You
amazing.
become Zordon.
Come what?
Is this another
Zordon.
Is that the brain guy in Ninja Turtles?
No, Power Rangers.
Power Rangers?
The guy in the face, the big face.
Oh,
Zordon.
oh my god, the one that tells him their mission.
Yeah.
He's a computer. He's a computer, isn't he?
Yeah. Zordon.
Of all the things you could have said,
Yeah,
you
that-
said the Power Rangers reference.
I'll get a few references, but the Power Ranger ones are wild for me. I think they were definitely on when I was a kid, but I don't remember anything about it.
Because it's my time.
Yeah.
Look, Danny talks like he's old. He's
It's
not
because
old.
I feel old.
Yeah, when
I
William
was
said he
like-
was 15 years old for Y2K, I was like, oh, yes.
I was like, Danny, you're not old, Danny.
I had a kid when I was 18, so every year that I've had since then has been doubled by the fact that I've got
like
children.
dog
around.
years.
Yeah. So I had a child so young that most of my friends took an extra 5 to 10 years to have children because they saw what having children was like.
Jesus.
It's like, no.
Yeah, exactly.
I'll scroll through my my like Facebook and I'll find like old friends of mine that have like 2 kids and they're same age as me, and I'm like, oh man.
For me, it's like I start to see people that I went to school with comment on like Channel 7 Facebook, and I'm like, oh, I'm that old now, where it's like these people are weird internet people, or weird midlife crisis people. What's going on?
The commenting on Facebook thing is always fun to me because I'm like, who goes out of their way to really comment on Channel 7 news?
It'll be like, Channel 7 will be like, too many immigrants coming into this country, and then you'll go into the comment section and Bill's like, yeah, they took my job, and then you look at Bill's like main photo and it's him smoking like a bong on his main photo. You're like, oh yeah, I bet it was the immigrants' job problem that you lost your job, you idiot.
Talking about like stuff that's new and stuff. Hey, have you heard? Lorcana is coming
Disney card
to
game.
Australia.
But it's like season 5, right?
Well, so what happened is they're giving steroids to this Lorcana in Australia. So I think in June, within the whole month of June, set 1 to set 4, every week,
Holy
baby.
Does that mean you have to get all the products?
Yeah, so
I thought
they're
that-
releasing set 1 in the first week of June. I think set 2, second week of June, set 3, third week of June, set 4, fourth week of June.
Are you sure?
That's a fucking nightmare.
Wait, I remember them saying that Australia's just going to get from the set onwards and we're not getting
No,
backfilled.
they're getting like a limited amount of set 1 to set 4.
Just so you know, Lorcana is the Disney version of the trading card game.
Yes, the TCG, the Disney TCG.
Because obviously it's been out in the US. What does it play like, roughly?
It's pretty big. So they had their first, because when it first launched, right, Disney said, or Lorcana, or
I mean,
whichever-
more, is it similar to... is it
Disney,
similar to another
let's
game?
just put it as Disney.
It plays like Magic.
Okay.
Disney said that they're not going to do any organized play or tournaments, like competitive, for the first year. So I think it's already 1 year.
Interesting.
So the first, I think, like an official event was, I think, launched a couple of days ago.
It better have
I think
been
a
at
week.
Disneyland.
Yeah. No, not in Disneyland.
Lame.
They had a bunch of giveaways at Disneyland though. And
Yeah.
those Disneyland promos are worth dollars.
Yeah. But the event was sold out like within minutes.
Interesting.
Yeah, it was like I think it's a pretty big event, but it was sold out. Like the events were sold out so quickly that people was like complaining like, hey, I want to play this game, but there's no chance. It's similar like One Piece. Like people was like, I don't have a chance to play it because I don't have tickets.
Yeah, absolutely,
Things like
yeah.
that. So, but Australia, we're still getting the 1 to 4, because if we don't get 1 to 4, can you imagine someone importing cards and then playing it in tournament? It's not fair.
Yeah,
It's
that's
got to be
true.
such a frantic rush for people that want to play Lorcana to just like grab everything from 1 to 4 in one go though.
Yeah, go bankrupt because we've...
Well, at least you're
Lorcana.
not. It's also, I think there is a there's a new cycle coming through as well. Like what's
So
the
we'll get-
rotation?
we'll
Sorry,
get number 5 as well.
rotation coming through. So a lot of cards from 1 to 4 may not be legal as well.
Oh, okay, so maybe it's more like a collector's thing.
That's
Correct.
interesting.
So like, you may get you want to get like set 1, you can get the Enchanted Elsa, which is like the most expensive card right now, which is like $1,000. So that is number 1.
Whoa. $1,000?
Yeah.
So that's
For like
the
a special
peak?
variant or just the
no,
card itself?
Enchanted Elsa, like the
okay.
bottleless version.
So is that the most expensive version of a card, is it?
Yes, correct.
Okay,
Enchanted
so
is
look,
like,
that high in... It's still a lot of money for a card, but at the end of the day, $1,000 isn't a lot for a peak level of a card compared to
it's
like...
just
up
'cause
down.
you haven't seen the promos yet.
But it's because the cards game's only been out for a year.
True.
Yeah.
So
it takes a little bit of time for things to start getting spiky.
The D23 promos are like, I think like they're like 20 grand or something.
But that's what I'm asking. So is that so that's the ceiling? For
What's
Yeah,
the
yeah.
Black Lotus?
There's no Black
It would just
Lotus.
be Walt Disney himself.
There's no Black Lotus, but Elsa is like control. It's like stasis.
Oh, yeah,
so it's a
like
strong
freezing.
card. is what
It's
makes it
very
better.
strong. It's like
Got it.
stasis. Pretty much, you play her. It's like GG's. It's like she's stasis. She just prevents you from like untapping or whatever. I think.
I've been following Lorcana for a little bit, so it was interesting to watch. Like the beginning of Lorcana was super hyped up. Everyone was really because it's Disney behind a card game. Everyone's excited for it, and Disney is such a wide, massive. They own so many franchises. So there's so much potential. And at it's interesting because right now it seems like, especially post COVID, it's card games. There's so much hype going into any card game release. Like it's almost like everyone wants to jump in on what's new and what's new fresh.
Wars.
Or even the card games. Well, it's like, and as a store, it's like, do we just buy every card game that comes out? Because almost guaranteed now, set one or like the first set has such a big hype.
Play a funny juggle of whether this product is going to sell or not sell, and it's like you really, as a store like this, it's okay holding stock if you know you're going to sell it at some point in the future. But if the game dies and you invest a lot of money into it, it can be a real hassle.
But like significantly, like generally seeing set one of every game card game that's come out has done well. Or every card game that we've seen has done well. So it's interesting to see that happen.
Or are we just only focused on games that are like, are there games coming out where we're just ignoring them?
To be fair, we've been a lot more picky with picking out our games that we think will be more fun people.
A big one is Digimon at the moment, where the Digimon is just getting crushed in by other players, other games that are doing well. And talking to guys who are playing Digimon, it's a struggle out there. And I think if we were early into Digimon, we might have sold through most of the product we sell, but we'd definitely be sitting at a point where we'd have to be reducing how much we're buying in right now. So is it better that we just never bothered in the first place?
It's a Bandai thing of like, you should just try out Bandai and then like you just kind of get a gauge whether your players are still interested or not. And then you decide. Because now Digimon is kind of like, I'm sure there's some dedicated Digimon players out there, but I'm sure like a lot of Digimon players are probably also just moved to playing One Piece because it's also Bandai owned.
Yeah. So I talked to a couple of guys who do play it regularly and like here in WA, and they are struggling a bit because those games aren't things. And like
It's a snowball effect.
There's also Dragon Ball. The new Dragon Ball is out too.
You need a critical mass of people playing.
actually, I think they'd gone
promote.
from Digiball to the Dragon Ball one.
Yeah, Dragon Ball is there is an online client. That's why it's fun. So like you can play it online or you can play it offline, pretty much. So yeah, Lorcana is here. So if the pricing I heard is a little bit on the Magic, a little bit higher than Magic side. There's no collector's boosters, which is normal boosters.
I think we're planning to
Just
stock
one
it.
product? Amazing.
No, one product. Like they had all the playmats. I mean sleeves.
I mean, at least card wise, anyway.
Yeah. I mean like card wise, yeah, definitely.
I think every set, I had a look at it, every set comes with 4 starter decks and then obviously the booster box itself.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's not too bad. The quality of the card is like Magic. It's not like as thick as the Japanese like One Piece or
It's a
Dragon
little
Ball.
more papery or something?
Yeah, it's more papery. It's easier to damage. I think like Flesh and Blood, pretty much like Flesh and Blood.
Oh, yeah.
That's not bad. That's your usual like trade.
Yeah, usual like Magic, Magic.
The
Flesh and
Japanese card games are the only ones which have that different card stock, which is a little more rigid. It's a lot more rigid, but it has a lot less flexibility. So Magic cards you can flex it and it'll bounce right back. While generally One Piece cards you can't. There's a
Yeah,
lot more
pretty
rigidity
much.
in there. You can't really flex it.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah,
So-
it's harder, but it looks like look and feel more quality.
Yeah, it's a different approach for durability on a card.
Yeah, pretty much.
I had a look at Lorcana and like it being a Disney card game, I thought they would expand out their franchises more. Right now, it's just like all the core Disney stuff like Frozen, Mickey Mouse and all that. I thought it would expand into like Pirates of the Caribbean or to expand into like the
I
Marvel
think
stuff.
sooner or later they will, but I
And
think
Star Wars as well.
Safe side, like they don't want to like because they will still want to sell their Star Wars license out. Like with the new Star Wars Unlimited, they could sell that license to them, and then they keep the Disney IP to themselves, and they can just sell the sub
It
licenses.
feels like they're not doubling down on Lorcana.
Well, it's also giving them plenty of range for the future, right? Like if they release everything right now, then it's like then they're hampering what they can do in the future.
True.
But it
Pretty
means,
much.
Like 2026 could be the year of Marvel, but then like Magic's just got a Marvel contract to do Magic cards for Marvel, right? I believe.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
think
next
so,
year we're
yeah.
getting Universe Beyond
So
Marvel.
Yes.
like what you said, right? So pretty much if they double down right now, and if you notice that Lorcana in 2023, it's only launched in certain countries. So if they double down, then it's no point because they could not reach the worldwide, right? There's no worldwide release. So why double down on your IP when you can't even go worldwide? You just have like maybe 2 to 3 countries max.
Someone will probably have like pretty someone like Disney will have pretty strong statistics. Maybe like OG Disney is still super popular in the US where it was released. Like, you're talking about a country with a population of, was it 5 times tenfold what ours is. So maybe they know that, they can release Disney just there and they'll make bank on just that alone.
And also they want to target kids as well. So a lot of like princesses and stuff and, things like that. And there's no like kill. There's no kill in the game. It's all
the game
singing
is very
songs.
family friendly.
Yeah. So you sing songs to 20. Like whoever sing songs instead of Magic is 20 to 1. Lorcana is 0 to 20. So you need to sing songs to finish your
It's
songs.
not about dealing damage. It's about collecting points.
So are you not interacting with your opponent very
You do.
much?
So you try to like, if you fight, you challenge your opponent's like so-called creatures, right? Or characters, right? So you remove them from the board so they can't sing the song.
It's all just family friendly terms to replace.
You prevent them from singing songs.
Interesting.
Yeah, so singing songs get you points.
So how does that translate further to then if maybe they can't do Marvel with that? How does
You can. You still like Elsa's ability is to prevent you from untapping. So it locks you down because like in Magic we attack with tap, right? So same thing with Lorcana when we so-called sing a song with tap.
I guess what I'm saying more is though it makes sense that Mickey Mouse and Elsa are singing, but it doesn't make sense that Iron Man's singing. If that makes sense.
No. I mean, like
what's he
it's
singing
like
about?
it's a quest. So they all have quests.
Oh, okay. So
much.
this round of quest
Yeah.
is singing, but like
Correct.
Iron Man's might be like to build a piece of equipment.
Yeah, so it's
Okay.
like a quest. I'm not very like 100% sure, but the idea is like
Sorry, that makes much sense. I
yeah,
get it.
questing. That's like you do like
It's more about completing something than
Correct.
and then like killing somebody. I get that.
so right. So like you can wear equipment, same thing like Magic. So the equipment help you like probably to untap like like certain equipment like have vigilance, stuff like the same
Yeah,
thing
I'm
with
with
this.
you.
Like if you tap it to sing a song, you can untap it. So you can prevent, but you can't sing again. But you can prevent people from attacking into it, so you don't lose that character on board.
Yeah,
kind
yeah.
of thing. So you want to like that. That's the game. The idea of the game is very family friendly. It's very it's kind of fun because you can't like. There's no like of course there's no land destruction or whatever, and there's no mana problem as well because similar with a lot of new games is all the mana is any card from your hand. You can use any card from your hand to you just show it to your opponent and you just face down, it becomes your mana.
Okay.
Pretty much it solves the resource issue.
So there
as
still
well.
is a resource, but you can use anything for that.
Correct.
resource.
So it reduces the issue of resource problems. Unlike Magic, you can have a really good hand, and if you don't draw lands, you don't draw lands.
Yeah.
And that's it. That's game over. Regardless of your skill level. If I'm playing with like a pro player and he only had one land the entire game, and I'm like a scrub, I'll just put like 2 creatures and then keep attacking him with that 2 creatures. He just can't do anything.
It is pretty interesting though. Like I like the concept of you have to make a decision. Like this card can't be used now, so I'm going to use this one for mana now, and then have to not regret that decision in the future.
Correct.
You're like, now in 3 turns I could have used that card. So there's definitely interesting like decision making process that has to happen there.
It's quite easy. It's similar like Dragon Ball as well. Dragon Ball, you charge energy using a card from your hand, and usually if it's a low casting cost card that you won't use in the later part of the game, you can just use it as a resource.
Got it.
Or you have triple of it, like use it.
True,
Like, you don't want to use it. Like it's quite you know what you're gonna use. Like in the hand of Magic, you know what you're gonna use, what you're gonna can't use. Can you imagine if like in Magic, like if you have like not enough cards in hand, you can like discard a card and get a land.
Just get it.
Yeah, get a
true.
basic land,
A lot of like house rules that I've seen people play over the years have been stuff just like that, like where you can basically discard a card out of your hand to go find a land, or at the start of the game you always make sure you've got 3 lands, and if you don't, just literally go discard 2 cards and get the 2 extra lands you need, so that everybody has a fair frontage.
Correct.
And I've always found it's funny over the years as Commander Magic has got more popular, it's a lot of people still bring in the very strict competitive rules, even though Commander is inherently supposed to be more fun, like
a
casual
board
way to
game.
play the game. Yeah. So like we used to, in the old shop that I used to frequent way long before Northern Boards was around, we used to do a thing called the Screw Scry. And our Screw was because that was our mate called Screw. We called him, his name was Sky, but we called him Screw. Either way, it's a bit of a story there. But his thing that he brought over from South Africa was that before the game started, everybody picked their 7-hand, and once you're happy with it, you could then scry 3. And scrying in Magic just means you can look at the top 3 cards and you can decide whether it goes to your hand or it goes to your bottom of your library, right? And then with that, you could potentially end up with 10 cards in your hand. So that after you've done that step, then you discard back down to 7. And all that really does means you get to manipulate your starting hand a little bit better. But ideally, if you're about, and this is like an older version of playing Commander as well. So this is 5-6 years ago. Sometimes those games would last 2-3 hours at a time. Most Commander games don't last that long anymore. But if you started with, you're a bit of a goob and you started with like 2 hands, you're like, this is a sick hand, but you've got 2 lands and you don't draw lands for the next hour. If that game lasts for 2-3 hours, you can be in for a bad time. So this was a decent way of starting that game off at a better foot and everybody's on an even ground. As long as everybody does the same rule, then it's fair to everybody, right?
Right.
And it just meant everybody was in for a bit of a better time than sitting there staring at your feet.
for me, Magic has always been the resource part. That's it. Like I think for Commander, if sometimes like we're in turn 5 or whatever, and my opponent has like 2 lands and he can't do anything at all. No Soul Ring, no Arcane Signet. Like, hey man, just go get 2 lands or whatever.
Yes.
Like if not, it's just you could be just sitting there. Just keep passing, draw card, pass, and discard a hand. Keep doing that. It's just not fun. Like, might as well we just pay 3 players, right? There's no difference.
Exactly right.
Yeah.
And then the thing is, well, if that person often will get left alone, and then nobody's going to target them because you'll feel bad for targeting them, but then they might come through at the end of the game and win the game because they've been left alone for most of the game as well. And I think playing casually outside of any paid event, I've always said the same thing, like, just go grab a couple of lands, man. No one's going to be upset with you for doing that. Like, we want you to be part of the game and enjoy this experience with us. There's no point in you sitting there just having a bad time. And I don't want to force someone, because like scooping is not always seen as the most positive thing either. People feel bad about that. But they don't want to sit there for an hour and have a bad time. And you don't want them to sit there for an hour and have a bad time.
Yeah.
So like, you may as well just get them back into the game and get moving, right? And again, like for Commander, like if you win a game, it's not that no one cares. I think at the end of the day, if you win the game or you don't win the game, nothing in the world has changed right now. You're not getting any more prizes, nothing like that. So it's like, you may as well just let them have a bit, like have their fun and move on, right? Yeah. So, but obviously at a competitive tournament where it's 1-on-1 and, it's there to be competitive, obviously all the rules have to be followed. It's a different situation.
With card games that have like a franchise backing it. So I'm going to go back to Lorcana real quickly. It's interesting because I guess it's different from player to player. But for me, it suddenly becomes more important of which characters I want to play rather than what the game actually plays like.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like for me, it's like I want to play Goofy. I don't care what he does, but if I can play him as my character, or like Mulan or whatever, I'll just go for it.
Yeah, yeah.
So
that's when I tried Flesh and Blood, I went through all the characters at the time and I just picked the one that I liked the most. And it was basically one that looked like a character that I liked from Magic. Mm-hmm. And I was like, she was like cool, it was like this like Vraska looking like snake lady. That's the one I played. I didn't care how good or bad it was. I had the enjoyment was coming from playing the thing that I like to play. Correct. I'm probably never going to win a tournament with that kind of attitude, but I'm probably going to have a better time, like a pretty decent time with it.
We've found that's kind of the go now for every card game that comes out, right? Like even Hearthstone kind of had that whole deal of like you had 9 classes and people would be proud of being like, this is the class that I made or I play. Yes, and Commander, same thing. You have your character, this is the character I play.
Yeah, like the color scheme, I guess, is what people drive for that one.
Well, Magic Commander, it's like people, will be like, oh, I play. This is my Commander.
Talking about Commander, I just went to EDH Rack yesterday. Mm-hmm. I looked up Lizard Al-Gaib deck.
Dude, I saw a hell cool altar.
And then Hazezon using the Dominaria United Hazezon as the commander. One. So every time you play, I think you play a desert. I think you get 2 Sand Warriors.
Yeah, and you can play deserts from.
Yeah, you can play deserts from here, and then there's a lot of desert from the set. What's it called? Is it Amon?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. That set, and there's some new desert lands as well.
Sorry, William, is this a June reference you're making?
and oh, cool.
So that is cool. Yeah.
So what happened is you were
showing us a altar on his phone.
Yeah. I saw a hell cool altar.
Because it's non-visual podcast.
It's Naya colors, right? So you play all the worms.
You can hardcore dig in and make a Dune reference.
Yes, I was like, pretty good. And then I was looking for a dagger.
Oh, the Chris dagger.
There's a few daggers.
Yeah, just sting.
Oh,
I was like, I was thinking of using sword. Like, one of my friends like, hey, bro, no sword, bro. That's not dagger. I'm like, okay, fine. We'll go find a dagger. So
You're gonna get it altered. You're gonna get it altered.
not really. I mean, I'm looking at it like I need to buy a couple of cards because I don't have all the words.
I like
right?
that William's building a commander deck. So
Well, me and William had a real cool thing once where we got real into the idea of he'll make a Crusaders deck where it's all like the Knights and Crusaders, and I'll make a deck that's all like the Arabics, the Saracens during the Crusade Wars, and we all hardcore dug in and make really cool decks to fight each other with. And then William took the one extra step and he got his commander altered.
Oh, I forgot about it.
To look like the Leper King.
And I also bought a lot
Kingdom Under
of
Heaven.
old school foils too.
Yeah.
I bought like a 7th edition coat of arms. You know?
Oh, nice. Oh, that thing's gas.
It's like $700, bro.
Your exclusive
Have
card,
you sold
though-
it now, though?
no, it's still there.
Oh, you still got it.
Yeah. Your exclusive card for that deck is a lot cheaper than mine though, because both of us got when Magic did a bunch of bannings of like cards that are deemed culturally insensitive.
Yes, yeah.
So William got Crusade banned, and Crusade is still like what?
It's not too
$10
expensive.
card.
Yeah, $10 card. Yeah.
I was gonna put Jihad in my deck, and my card got banned, and it got one printing ever in the history of Magic, and
now
my
it's a-
card is now like $600.
Yeah, it's so expensive that card. But yeah, we dismantle. But I really want to do the Listen I'll Guide deck.
All right,
And then
I'll do a Baron
Well,
Harkonnen
I know
deck.
Johnny built a Sand Worms deck.
Yeah.
So because when we were playing before, Kang played with John, and John's got a full Worms deck. So you've got 3 there. I can catch up with. I can.
Well, that deck was also with Hezezon Tamar, and he actually themed it as a Dune deck. Oh, yeah. So John's deck was a.
I'll build a Harkonnen deck, and I'll just find all of the bald characters in the game.
wait, there's you should do the treaties deck.
Could do, yes.
What's a tradies deck would be? It'd just be like regular soldiermen, right?
Yeah, it'd be soldiers.
Like honorable soldiermen.
Yeah, just soldiers.
Yeah, true.
Good, honorable soldiers
I like the bold head theme more.
with first strike.
With flying suits.
With flying suits.
With
yeah.
first strike.
It's just the Space Marines. I use the Space Marine.
Do we have any water like cards? Like cards that
Yeah, Island.
Yeah. I just built a fish deck. It seems off topic though.
well, if you make the Arthritis deck, you need to put in like a nuke.
True. Yeah. Well, again, thanks to
Like-
Universes Beyond, Magic's given me plenty of
Yeah,
opportunities.
there's, in Fallout we have
Yeah, there's a
farewell.
Fallout
Like
one.
he's pressing the button for the nuke.
Yeah, pretty much. We need nukes. We need nukes. We need worms. We need Kang's gonna do treaties. I'll see how much it's going to go.
So speaking about like now that we've got 4 episodes in for the podcast, what do we got planned for the future? What do we got? Because we're changing up the space a lot and Northern Boards a lot. Like regulars of ours would have seen just the kind of spring cleaning we're doing in the corner.
That's what we're week 4, and I still haven't set up the recording area. So what we're really trying to achieve, and that's what the Patreon's for. We were trying to like get that support so that we can build something cool for the recording studio and try and up our game so that we can turn this into a visual podcast. We'd really like to get the camera set up, let you guys see our faces. I don't know why you really want to see us, but like that's the end goal, right? And then from there we can do some like cool like video play games, like some commander games and some pack opening and some other interesting stuff. But all that requires just a little bit of support. So if anyone's interested, jump on the Patreon. It's going to be linked everywhere we go. All we're asking for is $4.50 from every $4.50 from people a month. If we can get a few people jumping on that, or even just memberships for the boards as well, all that kind of stuff helps like put us in the right direction. So
Awesome.
yeah, we've got some pretty cool plans. I want to get some like decent soundproofing to go around the top here. We're going to put a little bit of wood paneling around the bottom of it just to get that like acoustic level up there. And then I've got a shelf here behind us, and each one of us is going to decorate our shelf each, so that the viewers can like guess whose shelf is whose based on like,
Nice.
the stuff we talk about. So
I'm quite keen because this space we tend to change up the space a lot. Like we don't really know what we want to do with the space, and like in the past it keeps getting better and better. Like we had the carpet put in, and I thought it was a real cozy little space, and then we're
destroyed it.
we're cleaning it up all over again and got a new project in, and I'm quite keen to see what we can turn around.
for anybody who doesn't come down to the boards like a regular, we're recording out of a game hobby shop, right? So on the like front little divot of our hobby shop, we have this like little nook that it's not really big enough to do anything proper with. So over the years, we've turned it into like a space with TVs, and we'd play Mario Kart there, and then we turned into like a bit of a reading nook and little like I've gone up and down, but it's the bane of poor Kang's existence. As like I'll come up with some new idea and I'll come in to destroy it, and then inevitably I'll have too much work going on, so I don't ever finish any of the projects I start. So at the moment, it's like an explosion's just happening here, and like we were actually I and my friend was going to come help me do the electrical works over the last couple of days, but he got sick and then he had to fly to Melbourne or Queensland. Sorry, to go fly to Queensland for work, and then he came back and then we were going to do it yesterday, and then he got Connor. He got an issue with his teeth. So then last night, instead of coming and working fixing it up here, I took him to go get emergency dental to have some wisdom teeth taken out, and then I was like, oh, so we'll get it done this weekend, and now Connor's going camping until like next Wednesday. So I'm like, oh.
And electrical work, we want to keep it to the electrician.
Yes, yeah, he's an actual electrician, so I'm going to let him handle that.
Delays.
So like, it gives plenty of the viewers plenty of time to jump on the Patreon, give us support, and we can get some like nice wood lacquer going on.
Let's go.
You got any last words, William? Anything you're working on right now?
Oh, nothing much. Just pretty much still packing cards.
Are you going to be doing Lorcana?
I don't know.
Is that the plan?
I'm still 50-50, but I'm doing Star Wars Unlimited though. Okay. So I'm doing Star Wars Unlimited singles. Lorcana, I'm still thinking. I'll think about it today because I'm not sure how much is it yet. So let's see how much is it. And
So
then
on Eternal Magic, you've got obviously Magic the Gathering,
Yep.
One Piece, and then
Digimon.
You do Digimon as well.
Yeah.
How the
Dragon Ball,
Dragon Ball,
Shadowverse.
Flesh and Blood.
Yes, Flesh and Blood.
All right, so it's just all of them.
So I think we can safely say he's going to try out Lorcana.
And William's doing this all by yourself.
Yeah, it's all by myself.
That's insanity.
There's no free time.
When I joked about last week about you having massive arms from opening packs, that might actually be true.
The problem is I can see is I just want to dabble a little bit here and there. So when people like look for certain cards, like my website will come out and things like that. I do Shadowverse a little bit. I do Grand Archive a little bit. It's not like heavy. It's just like I'll buy a case in and it's just some cards there, and people
those
like
premiums.
yeah. And then like serious ones, I will do like it's Magic, Flesh and Blood, like One Piece, Dragon Ball, and maybe like Star Wars Unlimited. It looks promising at the moment. Yeah.
I think the same for us. We're definitely going to look into getting a bit of Lorcana going. I think it looks fun, and there's no reason not for us to try it out.
Oh, definitely. If it's retail, it's good.
Yeah,
Like,
I think access to like because we're set next to markets and we get a bit of walkthroughs here and there. I think with that, you get a bit of cross pollination from one game to the next. I think people will pick up a Disney pack just to see if
Absolutely.
they get a Mickey Mouse.
Yeah,
or something,
definitely.
you know?
Hey, you might see me with an Elsa Frozen deck. And I don't care. I'll play
Stasis.
Yeah, you hit one week of playing his Goofy deck and you realize it's not top meta. He's
Yeah,
out.
I'll play a Disney princess.
What-
So I'll be the
what-
Disney princess of Northern Boards.
We're close to wrapping up, but what if you're going to build a deck out of just based on characters? What Disney character are you building?
Oh, this is tough though.
Is there a Finding Nemo deck?
I don't think it's a Nemo. Nemo's not there yet.
You
But
can
Damn
pick
it.
your own one. Like pick your what
Ah,
character. I'm going with Speedy Gonzalez. Oh, I love Speedy Gonzalez
Wait,
as a kid.
is that
Disney?
Is it not?
Looney Tunes?
I
Warner
don't,
Brothers?
Looney Tunes though.
I don't know the difference.
Because otherwise I'd be with Donald Duck.
All of my dreams. I didn't know there were different things.
Wait, no, it's Goofy. No, Goofy's Disney, right?
Yeah, Goofy's
Okay, I'm
Disney.
safe
Yeah.
then.
How? What? I didn't know they were different.
No, it's
What's
different.
going on?
It's different. Like I'll probably do Predator.
What? What? That's hell cool.
Elsa's about to get fucked up.
Zoop zoop. The head, the mouthpiece.
Well, that just means I can do aliens then.
Yeah.
I'm assuming Predators Disney, so is aliens, right?
Yeah, pretty
Okay,
much.
cool.
It's all the 20th century.
Great. These
Fox,
grown
yeah.
men have come in and ruined this game
Oh
already.
my god. My poor dog has no chance. Goofy, run away.
Yeah, the Lorcana of Commander. We sit down. There's Predator, Alien, and Goofy.
All right, guys, we're gonna wrap it up there. We'll catch you guys on the next episode. This is episode 4, and we're already doing it. We're
See
doing it.
ya.
We're better than
See ya,
90% of
guys.
other podcasters.
That's it.